Hello, students. This is Dr. Witten here to review with you what to expect for the final exam. As you may have read or heard from me before, this final exam is going to be very different from the 4 exams you've had previously. And so I think that warrants a separate video for y'all in order to just break down what to expect from the exam, how to study for it, and so you're prepared when you do take this exam at the end of the semester. And so without further ado, let me share my screen. I'm just going to share the whole thing. So I apologize if there's a bit of clutter. And so this is the database we're going to do. This is an independent samples t-test, but as we will see, that's what I wanted to do. As we will see, so I'm going to post this soon if I haven't already. So this is a page that just breaks down what you need to study for the final exam. Again, it's a completely different format from the previous 4 exams because you're going to be randomly given a randomly selected hypothesis and database. And what you'll need to do is, given that hypothesis, analyze that data and write up the results in APA format. And so even my cat is scared. I don't know if you heard that little meow. My cat is scared, but don't be scared because I'm going to break it down for you. So for the exam, there are several possible questions that I have in a database in Canvas. And when you start the exam, Canvas is going to randomly select one of these for you. And so there are 4 possible types of analysis that you'll have to do on the basis of the hypothesis. You will need to select the correct one. So these possible analyses include correlation, t-test, I should have said independent samples t-test, paired samples t-test, or a one-way ANOVA. And for the analysis, you must complete the analysis in SPSS and upload your output. And I can't emphasize that enough, people. You will absolutely need to do SPSS for this. So part of learning statistics at this level is to learn how to do statistics in SPSS, which is still kind of the standard for all of the social sciences. So you absolutely need to be able to do that. And the more you practice before you actually have to take the exam, the better your chances. There's no handwritten, nothing else but SPSS will be accepted. And you also should probably practice saving it as a Word document or a PDF document, because those are the only acceptable formats. If you try to, do it as an SPO or whatever. I think if you try to do it with the SPSS extension or a lot of other extensions, it's just, we're not going to be able to read it. And so in order for you to get credit for this, you absolutely need to save it into Word or as a PDF. So you should practice that. And I have like 5 different practice assignments for the exam. So for correlation practice exam assignment 2, I put the links here. They're also linked in the modules, independent samples t-test, dependent. So all of the different kinds of analyses that you would have to do. Right? And so they're all here on this page and linked. And then there's a final exam practice that's going to randomly choose. It's a smaller database than the one for your actual final exam, but it will randomly choose from like 10 or 12 different scenarios, different hypotheses. And so that will feel much more like the real exam because it's random, like you're just going to randomly get like a hypothesis and database just like you would for your final exam. And so I have here too a checklist for an APA formatted results section. Other sources for this, your book, and in every lesson, I've got like an APA section where I give examples of how to write it up in APA format. But here it's just like a little checklist. You want to make sure that you describe the analysis, including the statistical test, alpha level, and variables chosen. You want the descriptive statistics. In this case, it's just going to be mean and standard deviation. For correlation analyses, you don't really need the mean and standard deviation. It doesn't make sense there. So you don't really have this is not part of that, but all statistical abbreviations should be italicized unless they're Greek symbols, which you guys don't have to deal with for this. So like if we were doing a regression, there would be like beta and stuff like that, but that's not what you need to deal with. So we'll skip down to inferential statistics, where you need to report the results, including the statistical test used, degrees of freedom, the test statistic, and p-value. Right? And then, of course, statistical abbreviations italicized. If you did an ANOVA, you also need to write up the post hoc analyses. If we're not there yet in the semester, if we haven't gone over that, we will, so don't worry about it. And then in the results, you need to state whether or not the hypothesis was supported or not based on the results of the test. For example, if the p-value was higher or lower in the alpha level, right? So that's where you would look for that. And so that is all of it in a nutshell. I'm going to add a little example here. You've got plenty of examples to look at in your lessons as well. And so now we're going to kind of go through an example. So this isn't like, I'm not going to go through the ones in your practice, oops, because you've already done those. Presumably you have those there. And so I'm just going to kind of go through this from another example. Let's say that you're given a database like this. So this is an independent samples t-test. Right? And so if you conclude that you have to do an independent samples t-test, then you're going to have to set up the database like this, or if it's a one-way ANOVA. So here, let's say you've got the hypothesis that those who are low in openness are going to score lower on a creativity test compared to those who are high in openness. So in this case, low and high in openness are two completely different groups. So remember, usually the unit of analysis is people, right? So each line here is a different person. And so obviously, if you've got low and high in openness, they're going to be completely different people. So you have to stack them on top of each other. Right. So you may have gotten the database with like all of these and these like side by side. Here, I'll do it real quick. So the like, oh, all right, that didn't work. Why didn't that work? Always happens to me when I'm trying to just like, all right, I don't know why, but like these two would be like side by side. You have to put them stacked on top of each other so that like all the people who are low in openness are, say, on top of all of those who are high in openness. And so I've already labeled all of the variables here. To do that, you just go to variable view. You can see here, I added values 1 for low and 2 for high. Openness, and then FI is 5-factor inventory. Creativity is Torrance test. So I did that there. And so we are going to now analyze this. So I'm going to go to analyze. We go to compare means to do an independent samples t-test. Openness is the grouping variable. And I know I've got videos on this elsewhere. So, so that is the grouping variable is the same thing as your independent variable. The default is like, unless you label one as 0 and the others or whatever, if you label it like this column doesn't contain 1s and 2s, then you would put something different there. But since it contains 1s and 2s, which is what everybody does, then that's fine. And then our dependent variable is the test variable. We're going to hit OK. And then there you go. That's your analysis. You need to either save this as a PDF. I know that sometimes, depending on the software that you have on your computer, that can be difficult. So I just copy this and then paste that into there. And then you can just save this and you're fine. Right? You can upload that and then we can read it and everybody's going to be happy. Especially you, because you'll get an A. All right. So as I've got lots of worksheets and or handout. Well, I don't know what they are, but I've got lots of different places where I go over how to interpret the t-test statistics, what you really need. I'm just going to highlight these. The means and standard deviations are there. And then this first line, so you just look at the top row, and then remember one-sided P is if it's a hypothesis that is directional. So if I say, I expect, your hypothesis is that people who are high in openness will score higher on the creativity test, then you would use the one-sided P. If I said, like, I don't know who's going to be higher, like, I just think that they're going to be different. I don't know if a high or low openness is going to be higher on the creativity test, then that would be a two-sided piece. So that's where the directional versus non-directional hypotheses come in. And so that's really all you need to write this up. So let's go to the checklist. And so the first thing you're going to do is describe the analysis. And so this is where you would say an independent samples t-test was used to test the hypothesis that people higher in openness to experience would be, what did I say? Would score higher on a test of creativity. And alpha, you always need to do your alpha level of 0.05 determined statistical significance. Right, thank goodness for autocorrect, huh? Sorry. I don't know why it looks like this. Whatever. Okay. Okay, so that's the, so in, when I talk about, you have to describe the analysis, you have to name the test, state your variables, so, or your hypothesis, which is here, and then the alpha level. And then unless you're doing a correlation, you need to state them, your descriptive statistics, which for y'all is always going to be the mean and standard deviation. So so you can say those high in openness had a mean creativity score of 52.70. So it's good to keep the decimal, the decimals consistent. And so because I'm going to do 0.25 in the next one, should do that. Add that 0. So standard deviation of, oh, hold on, I mixed it up. Sorry, low in openness. Right, and then their standard deviation was 11.87. And so here's where you would italicize that. Right? And so also, like, if you abbreviated the mean, you would italicize that. It would look like that, but that's not how I'm writing it up. Where, so those high in openness had a mean of, is it 74.25? And then copy that so that it's already abbreviated. And then, yeah, 16.89. So now we got our descriptive statistics and it's italicized appropriately, rounded appropriately. That's another thing I didn't add on the checklist. You don't want to round to more than 3 decimal places. Most people do 2. And what do I got to do next? Okay. So we can tell that the p-value is way less than 0.05. When the p-value is small and less than 0.05, then we can say that the results are statistically significant. So this represents a statistically significant difference. And then we did a T, the degrees of freedom are right there, they're 38. The T value is right here. You don't really need the negative in this. You could put it in there if you want to, but nobody's going to know which one you labeled 1 and which one you labeled 2. And P less than 0.00001. Make sure that you italicize stuff. Okay, so yay, you just did your inferential statistics. You are awesome. And so now you just have to make your startling conclusion. Results support the hypothesis that we already stated it earlier, so that's what I would do. So yeah, you just wrote a results section, or I did, but you can do it now that you've seen me do it, and you're going to do it at least 5 times using this practice exams before you take the test. And so you can copy and paste this into the output. I'm actually going to copy and paste it into this so that y'all can have another. You can have another example when you are studying for this. Okay. Okay. So I hope that this video is helpful. I mean, you've got lots of things to practice. We'll meet several times during the semester before your exams in order to review this. And so if you have questions, obviously contact me or one of the TAs to get to understand what is expected of you before you actually take the exam. So, okay, I don't know what I just did there, but hi. So yeah, so obviously any questions, let us know. And the key to doing well on this exam, just like anything else in this class, is practice, 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 practice. And I hope I've given you enough resources to practice with. And so that is all I have to say about that. And I will see y'all soon. Happy studying.